There's a saying that in 10 years, there'll be two types of companies. The first type of company adopted artificial intelligence to help their organization. The second type no longer exists.
Connected Conversations with Lena Perova. Bridging worlds, one conversation at a time.
So we are back to Connected Conversations, and we have John Arnott, who is visiting us from Texas today, and we are going to be talking about AI because we have not heard much about it, but today's conversation is very different because we have John, and John is going to be talking about AI not like anybody else who is talking about AI in the past year or two. John's story is going back to 80s?
That's right.
Because quite frankly, AI is something that real AI, what we know that it came back from 50s, quite frankly, right?
Right.
So what's your story, John?
Yes. So, and thank you for having me here. This is a wonderful opportunity to speak to you about AI on this podcast. I was fortunate enough that I foresaw an opportunity where AI could be something really good for us a long time ago. Fortunate and unfortunate. Fortunate in that in 1986, when I started college at the University of Texas, I was a computer science major. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to pursue artificial intelligence. And so I learned the different languages. We did a language called Lisp. We did a language called Prolog. And we did that kind of work. So much so that in my resume, I found it just a couple of weeks ago. My dad handed me this envelope back from the day, and I opened it and it had my old resume. My resume on it said, not much, a few different experiences, but it said that I was pursuing a role in artificial intelligence to help organizations with knowledge-based systems, and it showed the skills that I had. That was back in the 80s. Fortunately for me, though, I decided that my skills were best in helping organizations with their digital strategies and help them from a business perspective. And I say fortunately because shortly after the 80s, we went into something called the second AI winter, a period where really very little was done in AI research. But I was always excited in what could potentially happen. Here we are in 2024, and we get to see the beginnings of what is going to happen, the beginnings using large language models that are going to evolve into agents that help us do things on a daily basis. So it's been an exciting journey, and over the past half a dozen years or so, my company right now has been using AI to help organizations with their digital marketing.
And I was so happy to have you here because this whole podcast is about people who bring positive impact to our communities. And so with you are CEO of C1M, that's your company. What do you guys do?
C1M is a company that helps organizations meet their growth objectives using artificial intelligence and digital marketing. We help in the marketing, we help in the customer service, we help in the back office operations. We adopt the technologies that are now available to all businesses today, and we help them meet those growth goals.
And so what I know about you, John, is that you're also a public speaker. You came to visit DC because you're going to be speaking on our event tomorrow. I'm incredibly excited about that. You also published several books. So your first publication was Measurable Results, Stop Wasting Money and Start Seeing Growth Today. That's, I'm assuming it's about marketing, right? You had another publication also in marketing, Content First Marketing, the ultimate guide to building authority, establishing trust, creating lifetime customers. But what I really want to talk today is about your latest book, which is AI Imperative. I looked through the book, and it's a guide for CEOs on implementing AI. And the market is huge today. The numbers I have, and I'm pretty sure the numbers are changing. So today's AI market is $200 billion, and it's keep growing. By 2030, we are expecting to have $1.8 trillion invested into AI. So more and more companies are implementing AI strategies. So tell us about your book.
The AI Imperative is intended to be a handbook for CEOs, business leaders, those that realize that adopting AI in their organization is something that is inevitable, is natural, and is necessary to be competitive. There's a saying that in 10 years, there'll be two types of companies. The first type of company adopted artificial intelligence to help their organization. The second type no longer exists. And this is for those CEOs that realize they have to adopt it. It's intended also to be the type of book where you can pick and choose different chapters based on the type of business that you run. It shares some history, it shares some technical details, but more importantly, what it does is it shows how different types of AI, mostly built on large language models, this is what we're dealing with mostly today, will augment different types of business processes, whether that's customer service, accounting, legal, manufacturing, distribution, things like that. And we have case studies at the end of it so that a CEO or a business leader could jump to the end and see what are some examples of how we could use this.
Okay, and we know that we have generative AI, we have conversational AI. I'm sure you're talking about both of them. They progressed quite far at the moment. In your opinion, in different industries, because you're talking about case studies from different industries. So can you give us some examples on both? And also, in your opinion, are we going to have any ethical concerns that we should be addressing moving forward?
The area where we will see the fastest improvements for organizations and the types of businesses that benefit are those where the repetitive work by knowledge workers can be augmented so that they can be more effective and they can do their job better, but it's still human directed. Any organization that has a significant number of people doing a repetitive task and then there are leaders above them. Of course, the simplest example is call centers, where there are many people on the front line and they escalate to somebody above. Those types of organizations can benefit from having these language models, generative AI, supporting those workers so that people can do other things. They can become experts in different niches. They can handle different areas in the organization. They can move to different places. So those are some areas that benefit the most. In marketing, some of the areas that benefit from AI, if you ran a marketing company, for example, using generative AI to help with content and copy. Now, our company develops content. I wrote the book, Content First Marketing, which means you have to be authoritative, a knowledge leader. And we've been using artificial intelligence tools not to replace a writer and not to replace a content specialist, but to make them much more effective so that they can create a piece of content that used to take them a day in a matter of an hour and a half. We make them more effective. And what also is helpful is it helps with the quality, because we can use trained models, not quite agents, and we could talk a bit about more about agents later, but trained models that know how to differentiate when something is good or bad based on the brand voice of whatever organization we're helping. Those trained models can then review the work that was just created by that content specialist using AI tools supporting them. So we can really help people do their jobs much better using these conversational and generative AIs. Another area where I'll go with this is we talked a bit about generative. Now let's talk about conversational. Conversational implies that you can interact in your native language with whatever backend system that organization has, whether it's a dedicated system like a CRM or it's a database system like a data warehouse. The conversational AI now takes the place of this technical layer where maybe a knowledge worker couldn't get to the information they needed to make a decision or couldn't get to the information they needed to do something in their organization. What we've been doing in our own company is we use a project management tool called Asana. And it's been very helpful because at any given time we have dozens of projects that are running concurrently. We created a conversational AI that's a simple layer on top of Asana. So at any given time, someone can check, What are the highest priority tasks I have today? What was accomplished yesterday for this client? Which clients have the most overdue tasks? And so this conversational aspect allows us to now use natural language tied to a back-end system without having to go through and write custom reports or do the things that we would have done only a few years ago.
That is amazing. I was also looking at some of the videos that you were posting online, some of the examples that you were saying, that simple things like integrating transcription into your meeting and then asking AI to analyze it and create an action plan. Simple things like that, correct?
Yes,
that you can start with this, right?
It's interesting. So we're talking about something that for some of us, this is now just natural. For others, they might not even be doing this yet. Every meeting we have, which is typically a Microsoft Teams, sometimes Zoom, but every meeting we have is recorded and transcribed. And in this case, we happen to be in the Microsoft ecosystem. We're using Copilot to, during the meeting, identify summaries. During the meeting, identify action items. During the meeting, identify questions that maybe we should ask. We can actually have it prompt us during a meeting with potential questions it wants us to ask during that call. And then after a meeting's over, the summary is done, the tasks are created, and then whoever's leading that converts those into either tasks, to-dos, or follow-up items. And then we are able to email our client within a very short period of time the full summarization of that meeting, whereas that sometimes would take a day or two to put it all together. It's so much more productive, and it's much more accurate because we're getting these things done by a system that's trained to summarize meetings.
Incredible. Do you guys have any data, or maybe the companies that you've been working with, or the companies that they use in your book as a guide? Did they measure the productivity and efficiency increase?
Yes.
After they started implementing new strategies?
So we're not quite there yet because we've only been transforming organizations like this for a couple of years. And to see true changes in productivity and what that looks like, you need a little bit more time. But what I can speak to is a microcosm, something smaller. Instead of at the organization level, let's think about this at the project level. Projects can now be completed in budget or under budget much more consistently. And that is measurable. If I'm adopting these types of tools within a project to perform some sort of task and to external to the project and how I manage it, we are showing actual performance improvements. We, in our organization, we have a PMO. PMO is a portfolio management organization. It's for project managers. And in the PMO, one of the things they're charged with is managing projects on time and on budget. And that's always a challenge, right? Is you want everyone to be happy, you want the client to be happy, but you also need to be on time and on budget. And so we do that gentle tension. But over the past several months in 2024, everything is on budget. And the reason it's on budget is because we're able to use the tools within the project management so things aren't missed. Because when things are missed, you end up spending more to fix it, right? So things aren't missed. And we're using tools to augment our team of professionals that are already in place to do their job more effectively. So in that case, in the microcosm, you see much more efficiencies, and those are measurable.
What I also like about you is that you really stand for the idea that AI is not going to replace job, but rather give people a lift to become more efficient, and rather give them opportunity to be more creative and enjoy their jobs. Because there have been so many conversations for the past 2 years. We're going to lose jobs. Jobs are going to be replaced. Yes, we will create jobs, but what's the balance between replacement and creating new jobs? What do you stand on it right now?
Like any major revolution, there are changes in what the workforce does. Think about where we are today, how much more emphasis there are on knowledge workers than there were 100 years ago. Different technologies changed people's roles. What I find exciting is that The role of the knowledge worker doesn't change. But what does change is that it'll emphasize those abilities to communicate, to create connections, to create bonds between people. Those people that in their current position are able to communicate or have opportunities to communicate will have even more opportunities. Because really when it comes down to it, when you're interacting with a system conversationally in a native language, it is your ability to communicate to that system to get the results you want. So for jobs, those people, all of us, are going to grow as communicators. We are going to be in a situation where we have to be clear. We have to articulate what we want from this language model conversationally. And doing that will also help us communicate better with each other. So I see a lot of excitement around what's going to happen to how people interact. You know, we're kind of at a stage right now in our world where some of the people that are coming up, the children, some of their communication is challenged, looking people in the eye, interacting with another person. But those same people, as they go through their education and learn to use a AI assistant and AI agent and be very clear on what it wants, are going to also become better communicators in the process.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. You were talking about younger generation that is going to go to college right now or preparing to go to college, and you were saying that what they should consider to study now that we are in the era of AI. What are your thoughts on that?
That's why I do have an 18-year-old that starts college in the fall, so it's top of mind. This need for people who are problem solvers, the need for people that are communicators, the need for people that can generate solutions and think about them systematically, well, that really never goes away. We've always needed people like that, and we'll continue to need people like that. The areas where it gets interesting are where technology is changing how somebody interacts with their daily job. Think about a computer programmer. A computer programmer historically would write code. But that's already evolving in that you have software engineers, you have computer scientists, you have people that now guide a model to write in this language, in this case, a computer language for them. So when I think about somebody going to school and they say they want to be a computer programmer, I say maybe you be a software engineer. Maybe you think about how to design the systems and then use the AI to develop them, because that's going to affect them. If somebody is going to school for something creative, I think we always need to have the ability to think creatively and to be able to come up with new art. People going down that path, whether that is the arts, dance, music, or that's the arts, painting and drawing, being able to understand and appreciate art, I think is always going to be something important. The difference is in the execution. An artist today may work with, let's just say it's a musician and they're a composer. And a composer, at one time would just sit at their piano. But now a composer would sits at their piano even before AI, and they may be recording it into a computer, and they might be using that computer to help with some sort of cadence or some sort of chord structure. And go forward, now they have a plugin that's an AI that helps them actually further. But at the end of the day, that's still a human-directed activity with AI enablement. And so that's where I encourage my children when they're going to college is to find areas where you're problem solving, to find areas where you can make art, and most importantly, to find areas where you can improve as a communicator.
All comes back to communication.
Yes, it does.
Right. And now let's go back to marketing, because this is something that, because without marketing, going back to your book and the businesses that we are working in, without marketing today, no matter how great your business is, if nobody knows about it, there's nothing that you can do. And AI is really changing the way how digital marketing work, right? And before that, we were all coming up with the different techniques, how we are going to be moving our business to the first pages of Google and search engine optimization. now that AI is coming to play, what are the new strategies and techniques do you suggest?
Yes, I will take you through where we are today, because this is an ever-changing environment, and I'll speak a little bit to where we're going. Search engine optimization has been something that's very important to any organization that are content marketers. At least it should be. Some organizations think that you can just optimize and get traffic and not produce a lot of authoritative content, but that's incorrect, because at the end of the day, Google is there to help people find what they're looking for, right? And so that's content. As a content marketing organization that specializes in AI-directed search engine optimization, what we found several years ago is that there are two types of AI models that need to be used to become more visible in search engines, Google and Bing. The first one is a predictive model. What a predictive model does is you give it a general topic, a general sphere of topics, something that is more than a keyword, but is something smaller than an overarching concept. And then you look and determine how you can be visible. Well, we've been doing that for forever, right? We would take keyword strategies, and then we would go and see who's visible for it and compare. But what the predictive AI does for us is not only does it go and find what is visible in a topic area, it also helps us understand the probability of becoming visible. And then it gives us direction on topics that we pursue so that we can become visible in the shortest amount of time. I don't necessarily want to pursue something that's going to take 3 years to come to the top. I might want to pursue something that takes 6 to 9 months to come to the top. Even if it's not my number one choice, the predictive AI helps us understand that. What we do is we take the output from the predictive AI, which really just kind of sorts the topics to simplify it, the keyword clusters, and then we turn that over to what's the prescriptive AI. Now, the prescriptive AI, its job is to tell us what to write. And the prescriptive AI will say something along the lines of, we need 4,700 words on this topic. It has to have 47 paragraphs. It needs 32 images. It has to have 38 headers. And then that goes to a content specialist who, armed with a human writer and an AI writer, will work to craft that piece of content. And then that piece of content that's created is then fed back to the AI to determine, is this an accurate representation of what you were prescribing for us to do? And that is how we've been doing search engine optimization for the past several years. And this we've had enough time to know works. The most important thing about a strategy like this is you're not tricking Google. You're not trying to do something deceptive. You are creating great content. But most importantly, you're making fewer mistakes. The challenge with search engine optimization has always been is making the right choice of what to create and how to create it. Because you don't know for a long time if that was the correct strategy. You don't know for many months. And what if you find many months later the type of traffic you're getting is actually not your target market? It's slightly skewed, and the people filling out the forms are not exactly the type of people you want filling out the forms. It took a long time to get there. But when we use a predictive and a prescriptive AI, we make the correct choice for the target market, and we make the correct choice for getting visible in the least amount of time and effort, so that at the very least 6-9 months later, you know that what is becoming visible is appropriate for your audience and that it will become visible.
Yeah, that's incredible, because I know in our business, it's been always the story that, okay, we create the keywords, then we plug them in, then we use SEMrush, then we analyze it, we have all these reports, then, okay, if the report doesn't show us XYZ, then we adjust, we look at the report again, we compare our reports with the reports with our competitors through SEMrush. So now you're saying that we can just avoid all of this try and error.
That's right. So everything you do, we still do. We still use SEMrush, great product, several tools out there that are really good. We just build a layer over the top of it.
Okay.
The layer over the top of it is really about creating the right content at the right time, right? the tools you're using are measures of, is what I'm doing working? And you still use those same tools, but to create the right content at the right time, that's where you use the prescriptive and predictive AIs.
So do you have any data that we can, if we using predictive and prescriptive AI and not using it, do you have any data how fast you can go?
Yeah, we have a case study on our website that maybe you can link to in the notes. But what I'll do is I'll talk to it a bit about it. It's a specialty medical provider. They do bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. They do aesthetics therapies. They do elective type therapies. And they have many locations, several actually in this area. We did their SEO for, I want to say it was 3.5 years, where they're still a client of ours. And what we got to do is we got to use what I just described to you, proper predictive and prescriptive AIs when we took over. And when we took over, we built them a brand new website. Well, when you build a brand new website, sometimes you take a little bit of a dip. Sometimes it's perfect. Sometimes there's a little dip. So we had a tiny dip for about a month, and then it got recovered. Then we had a nice little trend. Well, I mentioned that I'm going to speak to where things are going with search. Google has genuine concerns over search, because sometimes people now, instead of going to Google, will simply go to ChatGPT and do a search. The exact same query they would have done in Google, they'll do in ChatGPT. Well, if a critical mass occurs, that has a huge impact on revenue. So Google has doubled down on making sure their results are exactly what people want. Well, how do they do that? They do that with algorithm updates. And over the past 2 years, year and a half, there have been more algorithm updates than any prior period. They're constantly coming out with new updates. So what an update means, some improve and others go down. Usually more go down than up. And so in this client example I want to give you is they're a client during this era of Google constantly doing updates. And we have data showing it. In fact, we published in our website where we can see the rise, we can see the drop, and there's the drop, and there's the algorithm update. But then we can see the recovery, and the recovery is because of the content marketing that we do for their SEO. We're feeding in it the type of content Google wants to index, and it goes back up, and it drops, and it goes back up, and we see this nice pattern where every time there was a major Google update, which remember, Google updates are designed to reward sites for producing content that people want to see when they search. This client always got a recovery. They never had a sustained downturn. It was always a recovery. And I attribute that to taking a thoughtful approach to SEO, but more importantly to using tools, AI tools, to help us make the right content decisions for this client.
So I'm hearing from you right now that for the businesses that want to stay in the game, because we were just talking about the fact that businesses that are using AI approach, they will go forward, versus businesses that might just go out of business very soon if they're not going to get on the train, right? But then we are also, what I'm hearing right now, that we need to be now aware of the fact that we not just need to be thinking about being on the top pages of Google, we also need to be aware that we need to be on the search of ChatGPT or any other agents, because people now doing search through those platforms.
That's exactly right. And we don't know the impact of this yet. This is still early.
Well, it is early, but also what we do know that I remember only 2 years ago, we thought that personal assistant is so far away. It's kind of just a matter of the futuristic conversations. However, just yesterday I was driving back home from the office, and I was listening that one of my favorite podcasts, we are going to be expecting Apple phone producing or going to be releasing a version of personal assistant, which means that every time when we're going to say, well, show me the number and pictures of, I don't know, John, and also please show me the pictures of, I don't know, like the such and such museum in France. So the search is going to be done on the phone with all the data that on the phone, but then the data that goes beyond the phone, the search will continue through ChatGPT, so which means that it becomes real. It's no longer Google. Our phone and personal assistant of our phone will continue doing the search through ChatGPT, so it becomes real. So if we want to, if our data from our sites need to pop up on my phone, if you are Apple user, then we need to make sure that we will come up on the searches of ChatGPT.
Yes,
That's real.
That's real. That's real. So I'll speak to the Apple one in a minute, and I'll start with the Microsoft part of it. So Microsoft is a very tight partner with OpenAI. ChatGPT is at the heart of Microsoft's AI initiatives. Right now with Microsoft's Copilot, you can just click the little web button, and it's going to answer your question. But what it's doing, and I think is really smart, is it's using little footnote citations, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you click on them, they will take you where you came from. So if I'm a content marketer, my thoughts now are, okay, what do we have to do to produce content that is authoritative enough that it's trusted by OpenAI, Microsoft, Apple, these organizations, so much so that it will end up in the results, so we get that footnote. And that, I will call that the future of SEO, because it's different. It's not just showing up on the first 10, 20, 30 results on a Google page. Now I'm a citation in an answer. And what does that look like? I think what we'll find is that we'll likely change things so that there will be more emphasis on some sort of paid placement. Microsoft, Google will monetize this because Google's doing their own things as well with this generative AI, conversational AI. So everyone's looking at it that way. So SEO will change, but it will likely also move to more of a paid model as more and more people do search that way. Now, to the Apple part of it, which I thought was great that you brought up, Apple's announcement was really exciting 2 weeks ago when they made the announcement about Apple Intelligence. There are essentially 3 tiers of Apple Intelligence, and I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but it starts on device, which means it's private, which means you don't have to go out. And so I've got a phone, I have a laptop, and I have this on-device compute that is processing all of my local data, but it only knows about my local world. And if I ask it a question that requires much more horsepower, it goes to level 2, which is Apple's private cloud of compute. So it leaves the device, but it still stays in the Apple ecosystem, de-identified and secured, but it still only knows about my little world. As soon as my question goes outside my world to the real world, i.e. like when Copilot clicks on the web button, it will prompt you for whether you accept going to ChatGPT. And so at this point, I will say, we can send this request out to ChatGPT to agree to it. If so, it bundles up the prompt for you, sends it, gets your results back. It will be interesting to see what those results look like. We know what Microsoft is doing. We've seen their results. Mm-hmm. Google's showing us what they're doing, but we don't know what Apple is going to show us yet. And I'm hoping, as a person who also is a proponent of digital marketing, that Apple's results will be some sort of way that they could be, for lack of a better word, influenced or tied to some sort of paid strategy, but we don't know yet. We really won't know until we see it. I mean, it comes out for everybody in the fall. Hopefully I can get some eyes on that over the summer.
Yeah, well, if you do, please do let me know.
Absolutely.
You and I will talk. It leads me to the next question, because there are so many different platforms right now. Those are the very famous ones. I think we all know. I'm curious if new ones will become. I'm sure they will, and they're still popping up. Now that you are guiding CEOs and businesses, what would you recommend when we are choosing a platform for our business? I know all of us who are here in DC usually choose Microsoft for obvious reasons, but some businesses probably choose something different. what your recommendation when a business choose a AI platform? What do we need to consider?
The way you should approach choosing the model is a point-in-time decision. And it's also a decision where you can potentially replace the model. You should think of these models, OpenAI's ChatGPT, which is really just GPT 4.0 today, Claude, Google's Gemini, all of the open source models, dozens and dozens of them. You should think of them as utilities, and which utility serves your business best. The big players are combining it all together. If you're a Microsoft shop, you have Copilot. Underneath the hood is GPT 4.0. Every new version of OpenAI's product will probably be in there. And that decision's kind of made for you. But that's really more in the consumer or end user experience. What if I'm building out a system to support my call center? Or what if I'm building a conversational AI that sits on my website and answers questions, right? Like Astro, right? What tool am I going to use there? What platform? And that decision is going to be based on the use case, which is which utility is best for me. The challenge those organizations face that are purely creating large language models is that they are all in a race to zero, meaning at some point these are just free because of the open source movement. So as a business leader, your decision really should be more about which platform works for you at that time, and whoever's architecting a solution on it, you could potentially change that utility out at any given time. Makes me think back to in the early 90s, there was this boom, the client server era, and we built all these custom systems that were front end and a back end relational database. And during that era, there were so many different relational database providers, countless. Then we kind of narrowed down to Oracle, Sybase, SQL Server, DB2. But then we got open source SQL databases that were every bit as robust as some of these commercial ones. And now we really don't have that conversation about what database you're using anymore. You just trust that's the right relational database. These language models that are the horsepower underneath the solutions that we're building, they are utilities, and they'll eventually you won't really think too much about that.
And I'm curious because going back 2 years ago, when for many of us, AI was just a new thing, and the whole buzz was going around, and the biggest thing that we were all expecting, again, I'm speaking for myself and many people like me, for you it probably was different. Personal assistant. We were waiting, like, okay, well, now it's here. In fall, it's happening. What's next?
Right. So personal assistants, that's exciting. And Apple's announcement on that was really exciting. But the area where I'm focusing my attention and where I'm getting excited as an entrepreneur is agents. The concept of an agent is something that is able to do a task or a set of tasks as well. It's less than a job. When you hire somebody and you have a job description, they're more than an agent. They do many different things. A subset of the work somebody does is what an agent would do. And imagine starting a business. And for a fact, we talk about careers. Entrepreneurship will be even stronger going forward. Starting a business, instead of having to put together a small army of people, which sometimes is prohibitive financially, you can start with agents, AI agents that have a job to do. This agent over here, we'll use the marketing discussion that we talked about before. This AI over here, it understands our brand, it understands our brand voice, and it's a counterpart to my director of marketing to create copy, right? That agent sometimes creates great copy, sometimes creates okay copy. I have a human that's driving it. That's their job, but that's the agent. And at every given time, they just ask the agent to create some copy. Or something more sophisticated, an agent that interacts with a project management system, who its job is every day to determine, are the projects on budget? Where are the risks in this project? And that agent actually goes and looks at the transcripts of all the meetings associated with that project. It understands the tone during the project. Is this project at risk because of the words the client chose during the last conversation? an agent that is like a project administrator, a project coordinator that works with a project manager, that's exciting to me. So this concept of the proliferation of agents, those that can do different jobs, that's where things really get exciting in the business world, even more so than the personal assistant that's keeping up my email and calendar.
So, and those agents, this is something that your business, this is something that your book is, and your business is helping other businesses.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Well, when we talk to a company about adopting AI to help with their growth objectives, sometimes they're straightforward, a conversational AI on your website, much like Ad Astra has. Sometimes they're more complicated. How do we make operations more efficient in a specific area? In that case, what type of agents can help the human workforce be more productive? Or what kind of agents can interact with the technical systems that are already in place that are running this shop floor, for example? Yes, those are the types of things that we help with.
That's very exciting. Can you give us an example of a successful agent story that you helped in business? Because I know in our company, we are doing it right now. Quite successfully finishing right now business development platform for proposal creation, that there is no need to do those drafts over and over again because there is so much content that we created for almost 15 years in business. But I'm curious what you guys did in different industries, because you work with so many different industries, probably.
Yeah, I'll give you two examples. The first example is an agent who has a very, very simple job. Its job is to confirm an appointment. It's a very simple job. This agent, when an appointment is made, this agent knows about that appointment. It makes a phone call to a human with a human voice. I'm John's AI assistant, just confirming that your appointment is scheduled for Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Is that still good for you? Yes, great. Or no, I'd like to change it to some other time. What else is available? Well, we also have Friday at 3:30. Will that work for you? Yes, let's change it. It's a very simple agent. But with the way the evolution of the language models in their ability to speak in a native language and the audio models in the way that they're able to replicate a human voice come together, we're now getting these agents that do simple human-like tasks, not pretending to be a human, knowing that this is AI at the other end, but doing it in such a conversational manner that the experience is positive. So that's one example of an agent that I'm excited about, and that's happening now. Like this is kind of like the state of, not state of the art, state of where we are at this moment in conversational AI is getting the human voice experience all tied into it. The second one I'll give you is a little bit more of a pragmatic example. An organization that is a software as a service company, and they have volumes of content on how to use their online software. And they have a very successful support desk of people that have been there for many, many years, and they know the software inside and out. So what we're building for them and what is already being finished for them is a model that does two things. One, it understands all of the content in the manuals. Okay, that's easy stuff. Two, it's read every support ticket ever created, filtered out those that are irrelevant because they were speaking to different points in time when the software was different. The software changes, right? You don't want to train a model on something that's out of date, but being able to have a model know how to differentiate what's out of date, using the support tickets to learn, then connecting support tickets to the documentation and knowing how to summarize these things together. And then thirdly, this is trading software. Thirdly, understanding trading strategies enough to be able to advise, oh, for this strategy, you should consider this feature in our software. This is how we've done it. Connecting those three things together and being able to have an intelligent conversation in a chat-like experience, that's happening right now, and it's very exciting to see how we're able to help those customers for that software company.
That is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I can definitely see that in my business. I can definitely see that help in my business.
When you think about the generative AI, conversational AI, large language models, however you want to label it, there are two things it does really, really well: summarization and translation. Summarization takes a body of knowledge and it makes it easy to understand, or takes a body of knowledge and it's able to do something with that. Translation just really means I understand this concept here and it means this concept here. Sure, it could apply to languages, but it could also be I type this in English here and I get computer code over here, translation. Whenever you think about, can AI solve my problem? Abstract away from the problem and say, does this involve some form of translation of concepts? And am I summarizing this to make decisions? And if the answer is yes to those things, you have an opportunity to adopt the current state of AI in your organization.
I think what is happening today, and again, I can't really speak for all the business owners there or entrepreneurs, is there are so many opportunities, and the opportunities keep growing every single day. And sometimes it's that, where do we start, right? Because, I think it's the problem sometimes that we see that we need to identify the problem. We need to, because technology is there, but what often the mistake is to start integrating technology for the sake of technology. Because I think that goes like, let's identify the problem that we are solving with this technology and then start moving forward. What would be your advice?
Where do we start when there's new news every single day and there you have leadership? A business leader has leaders that each one has their own opinions on how AI should be adopted in the organization. And then you have tech and its cool factor. Mm-hmm. And it's like, let's just do this. Well, it has to make sense from a business perspective. It has to have some form of return on investment. These are really important things. And what I would do is I'd peel back to, there's this concept. You have known knowns and unknown unknowns and then two other quadrants, right? And I find that when I talk to people that are excited about AI, whether they lead a company or there's some other capacity, they sometimes get all caught up in the unknown unknowns. Like, well, can it do this? And can we think about this? They come up with all these really kind of out there concepts when maybe just spend a little time and knowing that in the world of known knowns, these are able to interact in any native language, right? For the most part. Great. So that's part one. These are able to take data and concepts and create logical connections and solve problems. No knowns. Let's work down a path. These can ingest huge amounts of data. That's our own proprietary data, whether that's content in the written form or that's data in a numeric form. These are all things we can do, and then come up with plans that can make your team more efficient, that can make your team put more of their time on the creative aspect of their job and maybe less on the mundane, and focus on those types of issues as opposed to, well, I heard AI can do everything for me, and then trying to come up with this concept that might not exist today. Let's just use what it does well right now. It's a way to conversationally communicate with a back-end system, with a database, with documents, and use those pieces of it today.
And I'm sure our listeners today were incredibly inspired by our conversation. Everything that you're sharing is incredible. I picked up at least 3 things that I want to integrate into my business for sure. So for the businesses that are just now starting, experimenting, if there is one questionable item or one piece of advice you would give them, what that would be?
If you're just starting and you don't know where to start, if you are a Microsoft shop, have people start using Copilot. Not everybody. You don't have to license it for everybody in your organization, but those that run meetings. Have meetings get summarized. Have emails get generated and auto responses get created. Get the adoption in the company to where the people who do the daily work start using just the basic elements of it in their daily work. And that way, they're much more receptive when you come up with a strategic project that's going to use something like this. No matter what platform you're on, find ways for people to also come up with their own suggestions. One of the things we did is we ran a contest last year of what could we do in AI to make our company better. It was really vague and open-ended. And we got all sorts of cool ideas that I never even expected, and we've adopted a couple of those. So if you don't know where to start, then start with culture. Build a culture of AI and then see where it takes you.
That is incredible. Empower your own people to come up with ideas. That's great. Thank you so much, John. That was great conversation. And thank you for listening to us. And please help us to keep growing our community of people who bring positive impact to all of us and communities across the globe. Please check out our website and please find John. John, where can we find you?
Easiest thing would be to go to our website, c1m.ai.
And we will put the links to John's book, Imperative AI, and to John's website. John, thank you so much for visiting us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, that was great. I really learned so much from you.
Great.
Thank you.